All right, what's up, everybody? Curtis Bryant here. It is Monday, January 26th. I am talking with a friend from high school way back in the day. Cory Presnick is here. I'll let you introduce yourself, Cory, tell him what you do, and we'll go from there.
Hi, good morning. Cory Presnick, Corta Development, yeah, Citrus High grad, class of 2000s. Excited to be developing. I'm a commercial retail developer throughout, mostly in Florida and largely in secondary, tertiary markets and national brands, similar to the projects we're happy to be working on in Citrus County.
Yeah, so you reached out to me a couple weeks ago. I had brought up the new development over by Target on 46491. That's going to be the Sprouts, kind of the anchor store there. The Texas Road, or not Texas Roadhouse, Longhorn is your project there. So tell me a little bit about that, kind of what that's going to look like, the businesses that are going in there, and then we can kind of dive into specifics from that.
Right, absolutely, yes. So that corner 46491. I mean, going back probably a decade or so when the Walmart was built, which was originally supposed to be a Target. So it's been on the national tenant radar for over a decade now, and just economics, the cycle that's occurred over that time frame. It just took a relatively long time to get going. Walmart was there sort of by itself. McDonald's came, and it was slow going for a while just because just economics just didn't work at the time for all these national retailers. Wasn't on the radar, but it's as everyone's seen, it's certainly exploded the interest and demand for this intersection. Just seeing the infill of the Hobby Lobby and the PetSmart, Skechers, all of that, the other restaurants in that development in front of the Walmart, and then obviously the Target development was a even further catalyst and really kind of put everything on the map from a national tenant perspective. And so, yes, I mean, heading west down 46, we'll certainly continue to see interest and demand from these national brands. And so we were able to capitalize on that. The 17-acre development anchored by Sprouts, which is an exciting grocery concept. I think, new to market, and I think it brings a great element to the community. Certainly, that was some of the comments that you mentioned on some of the feedback from the community of that development. They're not all of the tenants in there are super exciting, but they're all mostly new to market, exciting concepts. I think Longhorn's great, Metro Diner, Ulta Beauty, Five Below. Good additions. I think there's going to continue to be more heading west, but with that project pulled together, it's always a balance of trying to get the best that we can, the best brands that we can that are interested in this market, and they do all kinds of demographic studies, very in depth. Who their customer is, what their average household income is, their age. Tons of metrics to try to determine what their sales are going to be at a particular restaurant or store to ensure that it'll be profitable. No one wants to go build a multi-million-dollar store and then not make any money. We wish we could just handpick all the tenants, but there's a give and take there of some of the tenants don't want to come because there's just not a certain metric they're looking for. So we put the best mix together we could, and I think hopefully this will be really successful, and that will attract even more brands that may be more exciting going forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people here, I mean, we see the comments all the time. We post something on Facebook of, this company's coming, and then the comments are like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I don't think a lot of people understand the market research element that goes into this. I have a marketing background. I have a marketing degree. I did market research in college. And I know that these brands, spend millions of dollars annually to do market research because, again, they don't want to put a store up and then 2 months later be like, hey, this isn't going to work. That doesn't benefit anybody. So kind of tell me a little bit about how it works from your end. I mean, you're the developer side of it. You guys build the buildings. I'm assuming there's a tenant in mind when you guys are doing these things. Obviously, there's contracts. You guys can't talk about some stuff, so I get that. But kind of give the people an idea of what it looks like from a developer standpoint of you move into an area. Now, this project, in fairness to you, you kind of purchased this project from the previous developer. I think Ferber back, got the PUD approved, and then it changed hands a couple times. Then you guys are the end user of this project. So from a developer side of view, what does it look like for you guys, when you have an ability to do a project like this, how are you guys recruiting people? What are you guys looking for? Kind of explain that process and how all that works from the initial concept to the acquisition kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and in the commercial retail development, it becomes a relatively small network, because there's not a lot of new retail construction that occurs at any given time. We'll just say across the state of Florida. So most everyone in this space knows each other, and so but so that network and those relationships really drive these projects, because it takes a lot goes into pulling these together, and the community probably sees it and feels it, because it seems like it takes forever, and oftentimes it really takes a long time. So I mean, this project is an example where a developer had put the property under contract from the Olson family, who owned a significant amount of land throughout the community. Did a lot of great work in terms of zoning and pulling the interest of the tenants and pulling everything as best as they could. Things just didn't quite work out from a timing perspective there. And then, as you mentioned, changed hands. So, the life cycle of a development like this, and this is actually probably not on the longer end, it's probably right in the middle, is at least probably from start to finish, at least probably 3 to 4 years for something like this. From, hey, this is a viable location to grand opening. And so we're trying to shorten that. We try to shorten that as much as we can. But the reality is, under contract, you got to rezone. Construction costs are constantly changing. Interest rates are changing all the while. Tenant interest could change. So it's a dynamic process, and a permitting process, and the county staff and leadership does the best they can to obviously we got to meet code and try to usher things through, but be stewards of the community as well. So it's just it's a long process, and it takes probably 9 to 12 months to actually construct, and there's plenty of risk and dynamics that go on with that. I mean, in this site in particular, I mean, there's, as we know, with the quarry, there's a lot of geotechnical items going on in that area. So there's, once you get in the ground, you don't necessarily always know what you're going to hit. So, take a lot of risk, and but you do the best to de-risk it, and try to deliver the best product you can. And so hopefully that's, we'll deliver this project coming in here in June. Sprouts will be opening in June. So we're really excited for that.
Yeah. How much influence do you have on, you get the site, obviously you guys, again, purchased the site from a previous approval. How much influence do you have on these companies? Be like, hey, we have this site here. Are you able to go to, XYZ company and be like, hey, we have this cool site. You guys want to come? And are you like active in the recruiting process of that? Or is it more of a kind of a hands-off thing? Like you might advertise it somewhere like LoopNet or something like that. And then they kind of come to you. How does that kind of look?
Sure. Our process is really driven by the anchors. So the anchors, and in this case, Sprouts or Target, and then, working on a BJ's wholesale deal next door. So those anchors really are the drivers of the traffic, and really get the other smaller tenants more excited about the project. So that's the focus, is trying to go, okay, who's going to really drive traffic here? Who's going to pull together? So, obviously with Sprouts being a daily, at least weekly, some folks will go, multiple times per week. So that just draws traffic in. And that's appealing to the Ulta Beauties, all the other ancillary Bath and Body Works. I've seen some comments of the other comments. So, they like once they know that traffic, they know that the analytics that Sprouts has done, supports there's a large amount of sales there. And so that in and of itself is sort of self-prophecy, whatever that word is, but they take that as a cue that for potential success. So then, once we get the anchors in, because that's an active recruiting process generally. And there's times where they're like, oh, we really need to be in Citrus County, and so we'll get a seed point of that and try to find the right real estate and then build a project around that. And then we target. I mean, Longhorn's a great brand, so we would go target those once we have enough mix where we've got a viable project from an anchor perspective. Then we will just then the advertising on Crexy, LoopNet, a brokerage group will go out there and really try to make sure we pull everyone who may have interest and bring in the best that we can, the non-anchors. Right. So
now, generally, how does that work? So I mean, a lot of people look at especially that intersection. And there's plans, people don't realize this, but there's plans from, 491 all the way down to the YMCA. All that's already been approved. everything that you guys are able to do there has been approved years ago. So there's no stopping the train, so to speak. From the developer side of things, obviously you want to be a good neighbor to the county. You want to be great quality development. What does that look like for you guys, like a project to project basis? I know like this was originally considered the Shops of Black Diamond when they pitched it back in 2021, 22, something like that. And now I think it's what, Corta Commons on the hill or something.
Summit View,
Summit
Corta
View,
Commons.
yes.
I mean, that's because we're sitting up high and you
Right.
see the view.
Right. So it's kind of changed. So does that change the like the appeal to the community? So Black Diamond has that upscale kind of thing to it. What is your thought process on the development itself of like how that looks?
Sure. Yeah. And I certainly get that. And I understand that that's what the county leadership wants and what a lot of the folks in the community would like to see. And I share that as well. I think Sprouts is a great quality brand. I mean, I don't know if you call it luxury, but it caters to a customer that's certainly, up from public, I would argue. But so, I don't think we missed the mark there in terms of what the market was able to support. Going forward, the reality is just, the town center and luxury market, when they run their numbers, there's not quite enough yet, jobs that make a certain amount that have disposable income to support that type of luxury. Hopefully that there will be with, I know there's data center things. I try to follow as best I can that could generate job growth and income growth that would eventually support more luxury brands to say, okay, yeah, I can see that we could, there's enough customers here to support a brand. So I think that will come with time. You see Pasco County and then Hernando County. It's coming with the Parkway. The demographics are shifting, but it's just not quite there yet. Everyone knows about this project in all those circles, and it's just not quite supportable yet. But we're hopeful that within the next few years, and maybe as we head west, maybe closer to the Parkway is where some of that ends up happening, or maybe it's not on the frontage. Maybe it's a little back off the frontage with some anchors. Not sure yet, but we'll keep trying. We'll keep working it.
Yeah, and like I said, this particular project was already approved prior to you guys taking it over, so you kind of have like a footprint with the PUD that was approved of what you guys are allowed to do. But going forward, my understanding is you guys have other projects that are going to be here that are new to you guys in terms of bringing it to the board, so presenting projects that way. What is your thought process with working to make it more, we talk about walkability, right? So like different, instead of like strip centers everywhere, we have more upscale looking, kind of, you think of like a town center type thing, right? Something like that. So what is your thought process on those types of developments? Is that something that's on the radar, or is it kind of more the market is, still wanting the old retail type strip malls?
Right. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to that what the market of brands, how they perceive or how they view, the metrics right now. Right now, the deals that are profitable are, I guess, kind of strip center based. I mentioned the wholesale club will provide another, a more bulk option that to the community. So it's a new niche that, probably is needed in the community, but the next phase will be more, big box without parcels. So, similar to State Road 50 and things like that. I think that's going to continue, at least in the short term, because that's just what's viable from a market perspective right now. But we are also now we're trying to court, as I mentioned, like an anchor for a town center where maybe it's a theater or something like that, or a cluster of restaurants that maybe aren't the national franchise brand. Maybe it's more local chefs to try to anchor something to generate enough mass of that product type to pull together. And it's tougher from an investment standpoint when you don't have, because these Sprouts, BJ's, they have really good credit. And so the reality is banks will lend on it. People will invest dollars. And by the way, in our project, I'm happy to say our equity investors are all local Citrus County folks. So I love that. But the capital sometimes chooses what really happens. And so the town centers are more difficult from that perspective because you don't have the credit, as we call it, which meaning that someone's going to pay their bills behind it. So you got to kind of build it. It's a different process to get a town center together. And so, it's going to take longer for that to happen, most likely. But we are taking steps to try to identify the right anchors to try to get a true walkable town center in place.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big critiques with the county, and like a lot of these projects coming on, again, it's not an issue for that you're causing or anything like that, but a lot of people are complaining about retail. We're talking about we want higher paying jobs, we want this and that, but then everything that comes across is retail type projects. But going to that point, we've got to get the higher paying jobs to bring in those luxury retailers that we're talking about. So, I mean, it's kind of a flip side to that. The retailers are coming because there's a demand for that. Lower income has certain type of demographics, middle road income, things like that. So the stores, you're filling a demand for retail, or the people that are coming to you have a desire to be here, and you're just fulfilling that demand as the builder, so to speak, of that. But the people, one thing I hear all the time, what's it going to take to get a Chick-fil-A? I mean, if you can be the person that brings a Chick-fil-A to Citrus County, I think they'll put a monument sign up somewhere with your head on it.
Right. Somewhere. That is quite the case study, I'll tell you, because I mean, I see that all the time, and it is kind of baffling that they're not here yet. And I don't think it's appropriate to talk too much, about that the inner workings of why there isn't one right now. But I'll just say that the investment decisions that Chick-fil-A are making, they can go pretty much anywhere, and so they use their cachet to their advantage in the real estate world, development world, and so they have certain parameters that in these what they call smaller markets that it's not investable in most situations, and so that's why we've seen where the economics just haven't worked. They can work. Obviously, Chick-fil-A generates enough sales where they can pay whatever they want, but they don't, and I don't blame them. So it'll happen. It'll be happening soon, but that's why it's been a bit of. I'm sure it's been frustrating for the community, but it's really a.
Now Chick-fil-A is a little different too, right? Because aren't they all corporate-owned stores in terms of, like, McDonald's is franchisee, so I mean anyone can drop $1 million, whatever the cost is, to get the franchise and open it up pretty much anywhere within the limits of their regional, size or whatever. But isn't Chick-fil-A more of a their corporate decision making versus it's just someone dropping $100,000 down and be like, I want a Chick-fil-A?
It's that, and they're a private company.
Right.
So McDonald's, a lot of these are public companies, and they have to grow to grow the share price for their shareholders or their dividend or whatever they're trying to do. So, but Chick-fil-A doesn't have that pressure. They can do whatever they want. They're a private company, and so that is largely I guess what I was alluding to is they basically kind of set their own rules, and they don't have to grow just to grow.
Right.
They can grow however they want to grow, and so. They've made some decisions in that ilk that is partially why they're not in Citrus County yet, but they will be soon.
Yeah, and that's what I keep telling people is, like, at some point in time they'll be here if they decide to be here. But we hear it all the time. That's the one thing. Like, everyone, when there's development, is Chick-fil-A coming? Is Chick-fil-A coming? So kind of keep that on your radar. I know that you're working, doing what you can do on your side of it. But if you want to be a Citrus County hero, that is the way to do it. I think the first person to do that will be name a street after you or something. But anyway, so going back to development a little bit. So we have a land development code. We have kind of how things are supposed to look for that. What is the developer side of it in terms of the quality that you guys want to bring to a project? I know that you have to follow certain guidelines. Is there circumstances where you guys will do more to make it more appealing? Fences, like that was one of the conversations was, we wanted black aluminum fences versus white vinyl fences. So kind of where are you at on that? Kind of what is it, the developer side of it, in terms of the small things like that might make a difference? Sure.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, certainly we always follow the land development code, and land development code in Citrus County it has some architectural and call it, I guess, civil, or there are design concepts within the Citrus County land development code that are above and beyond where other communities that we have developed in or are developing in. So there's a lot of, I mean, it impacts the project economics too, because we have to add, like, I don't know if Hobby Lobby, we had to put pilasters every, I think, 30 feet maybe, brick pilasters. I mean, that is hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra cost, but it looks good. We're happy to do it, but there is economic results of that, and so sometimes that actually could kill a project if the numbers just don't work with the campaign in front. But so we're happy to comply, and it makes it look better. And oftentimes some of the retailers will want us, well, or require us to go above and beyond as well. And I think that will continue to escalate as we talk about these more luxury brands. The reality is the strip centers are just less, it's more transactional, I guess we'll call it, more convenience space. It's not, if there is a town center, then you're talking about, okay, the width of the sidewalks and the pavers and more of those elements that make it more of a place than a transactional environment. So that'll continue to happen. We try to we put our name on the product. We try to make our product as nice as it can within the economic realities of the development.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something that people don't necessarily think about either, is like your guys' name is plastered on all these things. I mean, it's, the plaza's named after you guys. So if it's a bad development, then that's kind of your name, is there associated with that, for that. So, Citrus County, you grew up here, you lived here all through your life. We're considered the nature coast, right? So a lot of people are concerned about too much growth, too much, use of environmental resources like water and things like that. From the developer standpoint, obviously that factors into some of what you guys decide to do. But what are things that you guys look at to help conserve water or to use less resources and less impact on the environment?
Sure, yeah, and it goes back. I mean, I think from my perspective, the county has done a relatively good job of, identifying from a zoning perspective. So all of this development we're talking about is clustered in this area where there has been the infrastructure improvements, 46 and 491 4-lane, highways. And so this was planned, the parkway was going to come up. And so it's not in environmentally sensitive areas. We did, we safely really go for courses, so there, we absolutely make sure that there's no impact, or if there is impact, that we are mitigating the impact appropriately for any residents of the property before we develop. So I think that's, the demands here. I mean, it's gonna, if people are moving here, they need services, they need retail. I mean, so it's going to happen. So I think the county's done pretty well where, we've sort of focused the environment we can focus on. I mean, we've made significant investments, not just Corta, but other developers in this corridor in, water services, sanitary lift stations, built the infrastructure up to support this. So, really, I think a lot of the utility wise and water, sanitary, et cetera, we've made investments in our own projects to support our own projects. Of course, it becomes public once we're done, but we've significant investment, the impact fees that it talks about as well. So, I think ultimately making a positive impact. I certainly understand the concerns, but I think the way it's designed and the fact that it is all being clustered, most of the development is the way it should, in theory, go. So you're not just sprawling out and just throwing centers wherever. So.
Yeah, so one last thing, and we'll kind of finish up. Is there anything that you want to touch on that you may not have mentioned, or anything that I didn't ask that you think would be pertinent to people of Citrus County, and kind of what is, expected as we go forward through this kind of transition period of, pretty much accelerated growth that we haven't seen before? Because that's a big concern. The Parkway came, and obviously the floodgates are open now to Citrus County. So there's a lot of concerns about that. So anything you want to add to that? Anything you want to, close up with for that?
I mean, yeah, you said it well, and it'll continue. The growth will continue. I mean, like I said, they're on the radar, and with the housing growth is coming and happening. I don't know if I have any messaging for the community, but I do think, as based on the comments, good quality growth from an economic development standpoint for jobs, and I think that's a key. I mean, the retail, like as you mentioned, is just almost a laggard. It comes once the house rooftops are here and the demand is there, and so just continuing to work on, which I think the county and the cities in Citrus County are doing a fairly good job of trying to encourage good quality job growth, because I think that just enhances the quality of life for everyone. Yeah, I know not everyone's. Yeah, I just hope that we can serve the community the best we can. And I can never please everyone, but I know everyone wants to see the nature coast stay the nature coast, and I think there's a balance to be had for remaining the nature coast, but being having the services that enhance the quality of life for everyone. who,
Yeah, I
who
mean,
wants to live in there.
all right. I
So,
mean, that's the thing. You know, you and I grew up here in the early like late '90s, early 2000s, and we were like, there's nothing here. You know, we wanted different things. You know, we had to drive to Ocala, Target, things like, or whatever. So there's a lot of that still here. A lot of people still feel that Citrus County should remain that kind of rural area as well. But the flip side of that is, people own property, they can sell their property, and then it has development rights and things like that to go along with it. And you're just fulfilling a need in your corporation, in your world of you're putting pieces in place of people that have a desire to be here, retailers that have a desire to be here, and all of that. Yeah, and, fun conversation. Everyone talks about the growth and all that stuff, but don't necessarily look at the things that had happened over time to get us to where we're at now. We've been kind of found, and now it's just up to the county and to manage all of that, and that's not your purview. That's you're just doing what you're allowed to do for that. So I appreciate you coming in and spending 30 minutes with me this morning, chatting a little bit, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you.